Welcome back in. It is another edition of The Rewind with Tom and Dave. And coincidentally enough, I am Dave. And if you look to my right there, you will see my very good friend, Tom Stevens. Tom, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm crappy. I'm crappy. But before we get into that, let me do the stuff that I sometimes forget to do. We would very much appreciate it if you're watching this podcast or you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever. If you would kindly hit that subscribe button down there, it would help us out a bunch. And that way you don't miss any of the upcoming programming that Tom and I have. It's going to be a big week for us. And hopefully an announcement, maybe within a week or so, about maybe some other avenues that you can hear the show. But we're starting to take off, and we'd really appreciate it if you would hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a comment down below if you would like. In fact, I'm going to add something new, and Tom doesn't even know about this. I'm going to add something new to the rewind right now. If there's a topic that you guys would like for us to discuss, or if you would like to comment on some topics we have covered, anything like that, if you just want to reach out and say hello, you guys are doing a great job, or stop doing this, I'm going to kill myself. Either way, why don't you drop an email to dsradioguy@gmail.com. That's dsradioguy@gmail.com. And let us know if there's something you want to talk about, you want something you want Tom and I to discuss, questions, comments, again, anything like that. We'd sure love to hear from you, and we're going to try and incorporate it, all of our listener responses, into some future episodes. So, having said all that, I'm sure you had a great weekend, Tom. I know you are not any kind of a Duke fan. I am,
No.
and yeah, and that was sickening to my stomach. And then you top that off. We're talking about basketball. Obviously, my Lakers have quit, and there's no chance they're going to get into the playoffs. But let's go back to the NCAA tournament. Big game tonight, the final. Let's talk a little bit about what you saw Saturday, Tom. Did it pretty much go how you expected? I think North Carolina lived up to the hype, if nothing else.
I thought it was a great game. One of the better, first time, by the way, that North Carolina and Duke have ever faced each other in the tournament, which is
Yeah,
incredible
that's
to me
crazy.
that's never happened. Hubert Davis comes through. Let's face it, everybody pretty much like you, I think, was rooting for Duke, and they want to see Coach K win that game. I'm a Coach K fan, not a Duke fan. Sorry, just never have been. And they're obviously this is a blue blood tournament, and you're getting a couple of blue bloods. Not the two that I thought we would see. I thought it would be Duke versus Kansas. That would have been a ratings killer. This is still going to be a good game. You got to favor Kansas. Kansas a
Yeah.
couple of years ago had that team that was probably going to win the national title. They were 28-3, and then the whole tournament was canceled due to COVID. They've got another really good team here, but guys like Caleb Love just playing out of their minds, and R.J. Davis, and obviously that big 21 rebound performance.
Isn't that crazy? Wow.
That was crazy.
Wow.
He leaves the game, hops around for a while, comes back into the game, and gets a few more rebounds, and North Carolina ends up winning that game. But I think Baycott versus McCormick tonight will be one of the big matchups in this game. But it feels like North Carolina with their guards in both Love, obviously, and Davis, R.J. Davis, can stay into this game. I think Kansas is the better team, and they dominated Villanova. But this will be an interesting game. I think it'll be a very good game.
No, nobody throughout this tournament, and look, I'm lying to you if I told you that I've been watching this guy all year and I've been on him and, oh, what a fabulous player. No one has had an answer from McCormick for Kansas this entire tournament. He is really something to watch. You talk about Carolina's guards, and I'll try and tie that in a little bit to Nebraska basketball. Carolina wasn't very good for the first half of the season until they made some rotational moves with their guards and found an actual true point guard. I think you couple that with the length of those guards that Carolina has. Man, that is a problem. And you look at the Huskers and what do we need to recruit and all that kind of stuff. A true point guard and a couple of big guards can go a long ways.
Oh, yeah, those guys are really, really good. But Kansas has got guards as well. I mean, you mentioned McCormick. He's good, but Baycott's really good as well. That matchup tonight is going to be fantastic. But we'll find out. I think Kansas is the better team. And this is Kansas' year. North Carolina, as much as we pick on them, I think we have, but they've been to 3 final championship games since 2016, and they won one in 2017. This was not a very good team, as you pointed out earlier in the year, and then they just got red hot. I think they're the hottest team going into the tournament, winning like 11 of their last 13 games, and they might be the best team now. I think Kansas is the favorite, though, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, Vegas certainly thinks so. It's not a big line, but it's a 4-point spread. I know everybody is out there listening is really wondering how my brackets are doing, so I'll just bring that into it to give you an update. Kansas was the team that I did pick to go to this final game, and in my mind, I battled, Kansas, Kentucky, and I really wanted to pick Kansas. But when you're entering bracket things, sometimes I think about, well, more people will have Kansas and Kentucky. But you're right. I don't know if Kansas got all the credit they deserve this year, but I think they're the best team left. And, man, this will be fun tonight. I'm going to ask you, who do you got?
I'm going to go Kansas. And maybe it's just the theory that at North Carolina's coming off that really emotional win. They obviously ruined the final game for Krzyzewski at home, and then the final actual game of his career in the Final Four. That was a great game once again. And I just think, a game like that takes an emotional toll on you if you're North Carolina. If had Duke won that game, I think it would have been a big emotional toll for them as well. I just think Kansas is the overall. I think North Carolina is playing the best basketball, but Kansas is the best team.
And I think that's fair, what you said about using up all that energy. It couldn't have worked out any better here, really, I think, for Bill Self in Kansas, because it was kind of like, oh, yeah, that game's on too, Kansas-Villanova, but North Carolina Duke obviously had all the hype. And if Kansas could lay in the weeds a little bit, I guess maybe that's what they did, was lay in the weeds, and now I think they'll take it down tonight.
I do too.
Yeah. So we'll see, and certainly we'll bring it back and touch on that in next week's episode. We'd love to hear from you guys. Again, dsradioguy@gmail.com. Drop us your predictions. Drop us your analysis after the game. So you'll tell us what you thought, what you saw. Tom, this is unapologetically, for me, my favorite sports weekend of the year. It is. It's just the Masters is something that I can't explain, but I love it. I love every single thing about it, except when Danny Willett won. That was awful. But normally I'm excited for this week anyway, because I just love golf, and I know you love golf, and we talk and play golf and all those things. All of a sudden last week we get this nugget. Hey, Tiger and Justin Thomas and Charlie are out at Augusta playing 18 holes, and Tiger thinks he's going to play this week. Your thoughts? My God, I'm so excited. I don't know what to do.
That'd be an incredible story. It doesn't feel like Tiger would just show up if he didn't really intend on playing. I mean, that guy, everything he does, let's face it, is calculated. From the age of 4 on has been calculated. I think if he showed up, that tells you one thing, that he feels pretty good about his body. I think probably there's a couple of things he's trying to figure out. Can his body hold up with all those swings that he would have to make through 4 rounds? And let's face it, Augusta is one of the hilliest courses you'll ever find.
There you
If
go.
he's got,
That's what I want to touch on.
if he's gonna make it around that course, he's got to be able to walk. I mean, there's no carts allowed, and the fact that he is, teeing it up even in practice rounds this week is a big deal to me. It's all about his leg. How's he feel? But here's a guy that won a major with a broken leg. So
Yes.
can he do it? Of course he can do it. He did it.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't know. I think he's playing. Can he make the cut even? I don't know if he can make the cut. His swing looked good in that, that celebrity tournament he played with Charlie. Yep. That was impressive, but this is completely different, obviously. But his swing, when he has teed it up, just whether it's, in Florida or, some of these events that don't mean anything, it does look good. But this is a different animal, Augusta.
Yeah, it is. And I guess I pretty much agree with everything you just said there. First of all, I don't think that Tiger Woods just willy-nilly shows up at Augusta and decides to tell people, yeah, I'm a game time decision whether I'm going to play or not, if he doesn't have intentions to play. I've never been to Augusta National. It's on my bucket list, but you don't have to have been there to know it's one of the most difficult walks in golf. There's not a flat spot at that property, from what I'm told. Tiger, we weren't sure if he was going to have an ankle to walk on not that long ago.
No.
So,
no.
And when I heard him, there's that tournament, Tom, that he hosts. I don't know the timing, if it's late in the year, early in this year, but he's the host of a tournament out in California.
Yep.
And he did that. He did that interview with Mike Tirico that I caught, and I came away from that thinking, my God, I'm not sure we'll ever see Tiger walk without a limp. Certainly never play another competitive round of golf. And now we're talking about, him teeing it up for the Masters this week. I'm just thrilled. I don't really know what else to say about it. I'm just absolutely thrilled. I don't care if he shoots 80. I don't want to see that. But just to see Tiger Woods out there walking the course and playing at Augusta, my God, I can't get enough of that.
No, it would be incredible for him to make the cut. I mean, people are talking about, could he win? I suppose he could, but that would be, let's face it, if he finishes top 10, that's one of the greatest stories in sports history.
It is. And yeah.
I mean, when
Tom Watson, one of the greatest. Yeah.
When Tom Watson almost won the British Open, I thought that was going to be the greatest story in sports history at the age of 60, was he at that point?
Yeah.
But this with a broken leg, and because it's Tiger, for him to make the cut would be incredible. For him to win is almost unthinkable in my mind.
Absolutely. And you say one of the greatest sports stories of all time. For me, his win, in 2017? Was it 17 that he came back and won?
18.
Brooks Koepka, 18.
Missed the putt. Was 18 or 19. Actually, 19. I think it was 19.
It was 19.
I could be wrong.
Boy, I'm freaking old. To me, that was one of the greatest stories. And so Tiger's been a part of it.
There was nobody there. I think,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And Koepka missed that putt. Yeah. So anyway, I'm excited just to be able to see Tiger play, and I'm pretty sure he's going to play, unless obviously something bad happens. But yeah, I'm just giddy this week, getting ready to start Augusta National. I can't contain myself.
Who do you got?
Well, I was going to tease that. I was going to save that to get us out of here today. Right. So think about it. I'm actually still kind of contemplating it. But Tom and I are going to do a Masters prediction here before we end the show today.
Okay.
We've got a few more practices left here, Tom, and we've got the spring game coming up Saturday. I thought this might be a good time for you and I to jump into positions and our level of concern and what we expect. And we'll do it we'll pick a few positions and do them over the next few weeks here because obviously we'll get to see the spring game Saturday, and that way maybe we'll have a little bit more to go on. But I thought with the game coming up here on Saturday that maybe it would be a good time for us to start digging into some of the areas of concern, some of the strengths on the team, and that kind of stuff. And I guess if we're going to do that, why don't we start with the quarterback position? It's quite obvious that Casey Thompson is our guy now, and that was not. I didn't expect necessarily that this would be the case already, but I don't think we have to spend too much time. It looks like Casey Thompson is our starting quarterback.
Yeah, it took three. I think there was a press conference early after the first week of practice or during the first week of practice. They asked Scott Frost the same question, who's the quarterback? And he said, well, it's a competition. And then Mark Whipple, 2 seconds in, with Casey Thompson. So, I mean, it's Casey Thompson. If your offensive coordinator and quarterback coach is saying Casey Thompson, it's Casey Thompson. Although Logan Smothers, I think, has looked good. I don't think he's bad by any means. I mentioned I went to a practice. He's a very accurate quarterback. He knows what he's doing. And that's, first and foremost, when you're especially playing under a new offense with a new coordinator, you want a guy that can actually, line up the team properly and make the right reads. And I think that's Logan Smothers. And Casey Thompson has the experience to do that as well. So those are your two guys. And I don't think anybody is even close to those two right now.
Yeah, I guess what I meant was when Casey Thompson, we first announced that he was going to be here and he was transferring here. And then we get Chuba. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking in my mind, it's like, and Scott Frost, of course, always talking about competition. I'm like, man, this could get cloudy. Chuba, I know he didn't necessarily come here to just sit. Logan Smothers is the incumbent coming back. What do we think about Heinrich Harburg? We've heard all last year about how big of an arm he had. Torres. I'm like, man, this could be like really a competition, really a battle. Mm-hmm. I think Chuba being hurt probably, added to the fact that it really hasn't been much of a competition. But I guess, are you surprised in any way that it's Casey's job right now? And does that concern you at all that maybe it's kind of just been handed to him?
I expected it to be. I really did. He was the Big 12 player of the year. I mean, he led the whole league in touchdowns, and he did have a few too many interceptions for my liking. But he was the best quarterback statistically in the Big 12 last year. And he was a wanted man coming out of the transfer portal, and Nebraska landed him, mostly because they had the most money to give him. And he's made a big deal about that. Nebraska doing well in the transfer portal. But no, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I think when you go get a Casey Thompson, that discussion happens early on when they're on campus during that visit.
Sure.
Yeah. Despite the fact that every coach says it's a competition, it isn't. You're promised that gig. You're basically promised that gig. Guys look around when they're in the transfer portal at depth charts to see who's on the depth chart.
Sure they do. And you bet they do.
Let's face it, if Adrian were still here, Casey Thompson would not be here.
That's right.
So he's the guy unless something crazy happens. I think, if Adrian would have been here, then he wouldn't have been here, and Adrian would be the starter right now, and Logan would be your backup. But let's face it, Nebraska's never made it through a season over the last 5 or 6 at least, or going back to, Taylor Martinez, where they haven't had injuries, and you're going to need a backup. You're going to need depth, and probably maybe even more than 2. I'd like to see a guy step up. Purdy could be that guy. As you mentioned, he's been injured. I don't see Harburg. I don't see Torres being in that battle, at least maybe even for a couple more years.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's probably those 3 guys, and with certainly a distinct number 1. And we can talk about the quarterback more, after the spring game, and maybe we get a little bit of a look. But I am curious about this. I saw this stat earlier in the week, and I wrote it down. Taylor, here we go. Adrian Martinez, I believe, led the team in rushing touchdowns last year. I think that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect that type of running from Casey Thompson? Because one of the things that Casey said when he came here was like, well, they didn't let me run as much at Texas. On the other hand, we're sitting around talking about we're running Adrian too much. So
Right.
where do you think with Mark Whipple, mixed into that recipe, what do you think, what's a reasonable idea where we land as far as Casey Thompson and running the football?
I think Mark Whipple has addressed that a little bit, that they're going to try to, and Scott Frost, I think, wants still to be an influence in this offense, that they're going to try to merge offenses, what Nebraska was doing with Adrian last year versus what Mark Whipple was doing at Pitt with Kenny Pickett last year. And Kenny Pickett did run a little bit. He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he did have some mobility. Mark Whipple has been quoted as saying in the red zone in particular, he'd like to run some option. And I think I've heard this week, Sean Beckton has said that they're running the ball and they're winning the line of scrimmage in most every practice with the offensive line, which I don't know if it tells you more about the offensive line and the running backs, or if it tells you more about the defensive line and your concern there. Losing
we'll
Damian
get to that
Daniels
at some point, but yeah, you're right.
DeAndre Thomas, they lost a lot of depth along that defensive line. That's why I think Nebraska is going to need to go get Ochan Mathis is here, the TCU potential transfer. He's the top player in the portal right now.
Pay him.
And I think he knows that. When he gets here, he talks to Casey Thompson. He knows the kind of money that Nebraska is spreading around. And I think that's the only reason he'll be here for the spring game. That's my biggest concern. We talk about quarterback. I think it's Casey Thompson's job to lose. But defensive line, for me, is the biggest position of concern. Nebraska was pretty good stopping the run, but you're talking about Ty Robinson, Casey Rogers with experience, and that's about it. They just don't have a lot of experience on that defensive line.
Oh yeah, no, there's absolutely no doubt, and we'll get into the defensive lineman here maybe next week, but no, there's absolutely no doubt that I'm very worried about what's going on with the defensive line. So just since you and I are so good at rating things and putting numbers on things and stuff like that, so just for fun, we'll wrap up Casey Thompson on a scale of 1 to 10. Your level of concern about Casey Thompson being Nebraska's quarterback. I'm gonna write these down. I'll keep track of them.
I'll probably buy into the hype after I see him throw 5 touchdowns in the spring game, because let's face it, it's designed to do that. It's designed to make him look good. And Mark Whipple is going to make his quarterback look good. So he's over under this. I mean, we're into numbers, over under 4 touchdowns by Casey Thompson in that, probably 3. They're going to make it look good. Maybe spread it around. I think he'll come out of that game looking very good, because that's what that game is designed to do. It'll make the wide receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks look good. So, yeah, I'm not worried about him being – I'd put it at a 7. I think my level of concern, just because Nebraska's quarterbacks haven't gotten better. Mario Verduzco has been terrible. And he's one of the reasons he's no longer here. Quarterbacks at Nebraska have not gotten better.
No, they haven't. We've talked about that.
Mark Whipple, I guess I'm buying the hype, so I think that he will be good this year.
Yeah. Casey Thompson running the football. As far as I'm concerned, I'd like to see less of that. Certainly, unless it means running in for touchdowns. Running back room. I'm going to put my level of concern at the running back room with 10 being extremely concerned. I'm going to go somewhere right down the middle with 6 or 7. We have bodies there, but do we have a great body there? Do we have someone that will emerge as that top number 1, no doubt, back? Your thoughts on the guys in the running back room, because some of them aren't even here yet.
Right. Ramir Johnson is the guy, but he doesn't. He's not a big guy. He's more of a third down running back, in my opinion. Although Whipple says he likes him, but he's only 180 pounds. Jaquez Yant is my pick to be the every down running back for Nebraska. But is he a good pass protector? Or is he just more of a 3rd and 2 guy? I'd like to find that out this year. Then Anthony Grant, the transfer, the JUCO transfer, is probably the guy that I would say the leader in the clubhouse. He's 5'11", 210, started his career at Florida State before leaving to junior college, and they really like him. Brian Applewhite said, he recruited him out of high school and was very happy to get him. So I think it's among those 3. Those are the 3. Gabe Ervin probably will be in the mix come fall, but those are the 3 healthy dudes. And then Brody Belt is kind of your Swiss Army knife guy that can play wide receiver or running back, either one.
Yeah, Brody's been getting a lot of the, I think he's been the spring practice guy this year. Mm-hmm. The under the radar guy that the coaches rave about every year, and has made these great jumps. And boy, I wish I had, Brody Belt's the best player on the team according to some of the, that kind of stuff. I don't think that translates at all necessarily to the fall, other than maybe in spot duties or something like that. You mentioned Jaquez, and this is the guy that I think a lot of Husker fans, we saw some really good flashes of really brilliance from him last year at times when he was on the field. You sat next to Jaquez Yan about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It was very obvious that he has shed some pounds. This is the guy that I am the most excited to see, not only in the spring game, but when we get to fall and his development and what he can do as perhaps an every down back, because I think he's got a lot of talent. He makes guys miss in the hole, which I noticed a lot last year, which I think is a huge thing. And I think he can push. I really hope he emerges, Tom, as one of the guys to be the top guy this year.
Well, when you hear that Nebraska's winning the line of scrimmage, that's one of the reasons that you have a guy that when he falls down gains 2 yards. But if you're getting push and then you add a guy that weighs 232 pounds down from 250, I think you mentioned I sat near him. We were at a live broadcast and I was able to talk to him for a while. It's impressive how trim he looks. It doesn't mean he's not big. He's still huge.
Yeah.
He's a huge man. But he would be my favorite to win the job. I guess the deal with Jaquez has been, can he learn the offense? Does he always know what he's doing? Does he come to practice ready to practice and then execute on game days? That's why I guess I've chosen Anthony Grant to be that guy. But my pick, the guy that I would like to win the job, is Jaquez Yant, because I think the yards after contact is what he does. But as you mentioned, he can also make guys miss in the hole. He's got decent speed, actually really good speed for somebody that big.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And Grant, I think you're right. I think if you had to put odds on it, I think he's the guy that they're really looking to. I think to play a huge role this year. I will be interested to see what Gabe Ervin's role ends up being, because I don't think he's a slouch. So we'll see. I'm confident enough that we have bodies back there that if we use them correctly, and everything goes well, and as you said, we continue to win the offensive line battle, I think we're going to be okay at running back.
Yeah.
Do we feel the same way? Do we feel the same way about defensive backs? Because we got a little bit to replace back there.
Well, I guess, CTB. I mean, who replaces Cam Taylor-Britt on the other side of Quentin Newsom? And then you've got 2 big holes to fill. Markel Dismuke is gone. Deontay Williams are both gone. And those guys had been here 17 years.
Right.
Those are your safeties, and those are the guys that never made a mistake, that you can't afford big mistakes. So you're hearing a lot of Tommy Hill talk the Arizona State transfer.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's
Yes.
true. Miles Farmer. Miles Farmer is a guy that I think wins one of the safety jobs. Omar Brown is a transfer from Northern Iowa that's getting a lot of publicity. Marquez Buford is a guy that's gotten some run from Travis Fisher. Noah Paula Gates has been here forever. Does he finally make a move?
Yeah, he was.
Deshaun Singleton, a junior college transfer, is a guy. There's a lot of names. Javin Wright has been here for a while.
My God,
it'll
there's
be
a
interesting.
name.
Quentin Newsome is the only guy that I really trust on one side, and it took him a while last year. And then Miles Farmer. Those are two guys that I expect to start, but I don't really know after that.
Yeah. Well, you rattled off some names there. Well done by you. That I'd totally forgotten about. Brian Christopherson has been doing this little series for Huskers 24/7. Oh yeah, that guy, or something like that he titled it. I saw on Twitter, and it was a perfect example of it right there. You named three guys right there that I forgot were on the damn team. So it sounds like maybe we have. Obviously, we can't replace experience right away, but obviously we have some bodies down there. We recruited these guys for a reason, so I'm fairly comfortable that the defensive back room will be okay.
Yeah, I like the guy coaching them. Travis Fisher is I think just a really good coach. I think the Tommy Hill get from Arizona State is a big one. I think he could be a guy. Omar Brown was a big get from
those are the two guys.
Yeah.
Those are the two guys that I've, kind of focused on that they were. I just remember they were big deals when we got them, Tom.
Yeah, it's, but I don't know. I mean, you don't know until you know. I think
there you go.
Nebraska's going to, that's a big question mark because you lost so much experience from last year. Cam Taylor-Britt, I think has a chance to be a day two guy or an early day two guy. I think Deontay Williams can play in the league. Markel Dismuke are guys that could play in the league. They lost NFL guys from that secondary. And just to say that Nebraska is going to plug those holes, I don't know. Because even with those guys, they weren't always great last year.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think on the concern level, it's up there a little bit for me just because of everything you said, the unknown of what you're going to get from these guys, and so much experience is now gone. 6 or 7 for me on the concern rate or concern table.
That's fair.
Yeah, just because of the absolute unknown that we don't know. The spring game itself. We talked about the weekend here. I'm a little bit conflicted. We have a spring game. We have for me, the Masters tournament. Number one, I believe you will attend the spring game this year. And number two, do you expect that you will leave the spring game going, okay, now I know about this. Now I'm confident about this.
No. No, I'm not. No, I'm not confident. Let's face it; it's choreographed. The spring game is for the fans.
Yep.
Mark Whipple isn't going to show, nor would Scott Frost let him show anything about his offense to Northwestern. It's going to be very vanilla. We mentioned the over/under on Casey Thompson 4 touchdowns. I'm going to go at least, a push on that, 4 touchdowns.
Okay.
You're going to make it look good for the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the running backs. And then who cares about the defense, really? Because, you just don't want to get anybody hurt. The quarterback's going to be wearing green jerseys. You can't touch them. How do you grade anything in a scrimmage like that? Other than you want to see what they look like physically, the kind of the size, the scope of them. I came away from last year's spring game impressed with Jaquez Yent. It turned out to be, I was right about that. But you really don't learn anything, nor is it designed for you to learn anything. Scott Frost said it last year. He said it the last couple of years. The practices ahead of the spring game are really important. The spring game itself, not very important.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think I heard Mark Whipple make a comment last week or something when asked about the game. He's like, the most important thing is not to get anybody hurt.
Right.
So I love Mark Whipple from the fact that he just tells it,
Oh, yeah.
like it is. He'll shoot you straight if you
Yeah.
want to put it like that. But yeah, obviously we're not going to learn a heck of a lot. The weather's going to be decent, it sounds like, and just a good time for Husker fans to go down
Absolutely.
and be a part of the whole situation. Because folks, we don't get to do it again until August, September, actually this year. So go out, enjoy it. I don't think I'm going to attend this year. I've been to quite a few spring games, but again, hopefully we just get through clean. And Tom and I will continue our discussion next week about position breakdowns for the Huskers. We'll see which ones we want to dive into next week. If you have any thoughts about the spring game, anything you want Tom and I to discuss, anything you want us to look for, or if you go to the game this weekend and you have some thoughts after what you see, please. Again, we're adding a new feature here. Just drop us an email. We're going to try and get to all of our listener comments and questions. dsradioguy@gmail.com will get you directly to me and Tom, and we will certainly discuss anything that you bring to us next week's show. It was a good weekend in one aspect. I complained about how bad I thought the weekend was, but the Husker baseball team looked like its old self this weekend. I was surprised, frankly. What about you? They go on the road against Ohio State and they sweep them. And what do we score? 17 runs yesterday?
17
That's
runs.
a good sign.
13 2-out RBIs.
Wow.
They had 6 of them on Saturday. And you get a sweep. This is a team that I think could be okay. I don't think the Big Ten's good. There's like 4 teams, I believe, over 500. And they're going to face a better team next weekend. Rutgers is decent, and they swept Nebraska last year, I believe, at home. So we'll see next weekend. I mean, but guys like Cam Chick and Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson had a grand slam. Looks like they're starting to hit. And Nebraska's got decent pitching, not great pitching. They don't have a Swellenbach, obviously, a guy that never makes any errors, the guy that closes out games and can hit like a madman when he's really hot. They don't have a guy like that. Max Anderson's as close as they get, but he's a guy who hits. For him. Yeah, he had a big grand slam. It was a nice series win. They had 16 hits yesterday. They left 13 on, and they still scored 17 runs.
I was not aware of that.
That Will Bolt's teams, here's what I like, and not all coaches at the University of Nebraska can say this. His teams, more often than not, get better at the end of the season than they were at the start of the season.
True statement.
His teams get better almost always. And they're 4-2 in the league. They're still under 500. They're 12-14 overall. Yeah. But if they can beat, I think they play UNO, Nebraska Omaha tomorrow. And then they've got a weekend series with Rutgers. If they can get that thing to 500 after the weekend, then you're showing progress. But let's face it, Dave, this is a year where the Big Ten might get 2 teams, if that, in the NCAA tournament.
If that, yeah.
If Nebraska is going to get in, they're probably going to have to win the tournament.
Right.
It's just one of those. It's not like last year where they just only played league games and you didn't learn a ton about Nebraska. This year they've had to play non-league games and they were terrible.
See,
now they're winning in the league.
I literally, Tom, this is how old and this is why I need you for like everything when we start talking about historical stuff. Not only are you like an encyclopedia when it comes to Husker football, Husker baseball, Husker basketball of years past, you can still remember what the hell happened 3 days ago. I totally forgot that all we did last year was play league games.
Yeah.
And now it's coming back to me that one of the things we talked about last year was, well, Jesus, if we could only had some, the Big Ten and their wisdom, if we could have only had some midweek baseball games,
Yeah.
What could this team have done? And now, as you said, really the midweek has been bad for Nebraska, and hopefully that'll turn around.
Yeah, I think this team, again, I think it'll get better. It is getting better, and that's what Will Bolt's teams usually do. They don't have a Jackson Hallmark. They don't have a Swellenbach. I don't think they have a great closer this year.
Right.
Somebody that comes in. Braxton Bragg maybe starting to look a little bit better in that role. But Nebraska, I just don't know who they are yet. I don't think they know who they are. But I am confident because Bolt's just a good, and Lance Harvell is a really good assistant, that they'll get better, and they are getting better. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I said last week that the problem is you can't fix pitching. And again, it looks like pretty much I'm wrong in the big scope of that, because as you mentioned, the pitching is getting better. It's going to be a concern. You lose your top two guys. It's not going to just magically fix itself. But you're right. I think the pitching has gotten better. It certainly looked better against Ohio State. I'm not saying you can completely fix it, but yeah, it certainly has gotten better. And you're right about the one bid thing. I certainly maybe we'll get two, but yeah, certainly I think we're going to have to win this tournament. And I think it was just I think Husker fans needed for this last weekend to happen for Husker baseball, just to rekindle some of that hope, rekindle some of that fire, because not only had we lost some baseball games, we had lost some baseball games and looked really, really bad.
Really
kicking it around the yard, giving up, 50 runs, whatever. And so I think if nothing else, it just helped Husker fans, maybe get back on the train and have a little bit of hope about something.
Yeah. I mean, they came into this weekend hitting 242, and they weren't pitching well on top of that. It's nice to see 17 runs, and the day before that, 10 runs in a game.
Yeah.
Nebraska, maybe they're waking up a little bit, and a lot of 2-out hits. We'll see. I don't think this is a great baseball team, but I do think this is a really good, if not great, coaching staff, which gives me hope.
Yep. I agree. And again, it's a pretty big week here for Husker baseball. Next weekend, I think, is a huge weekend. If we could just find a way, maybe, to get 2 out of 3 from Rutgers and start getting back around that 500 number, who knows? And it'll start helping, I think, the team's confidence as well. Tom, we have a basketball game tonight. We already talked about predictions. There's something I want to circle back to that I forgot to mention. And that is Husker fans and your feelings and my feelings. How do we feel about Kansas now? Because I think Kansas is going to win this game tonight. I think they're the best team. Do we still hate Kansas the way that we did back when it was the Big 8 and the Big 12? Or is it okay to maybe even root for Kansas to be good tonight and going forward because we don't have to play them every year? Or is that hatred just embedded in us that we can't get over it?
I kind of root for old Big 12 teams. I root for Big 10 teams in the tournament. But yeah, I'll root for Kansas tonight. I'd like to see, especially since they're so bad at football, that maybe they can turn on to something that they have. And maybe the Big 10 relooks at that down the road. Say, Kansas is bad, but we should add them to the Big 10 just because of basketball. That discussion has happened over the last couple of years, and I wonder if it ever happens again. But then the conversation, well, we'd have to bring Kansas State with them. So no.
Yeah.
I root for Kansas, and I like Bill Self. And again, I think in 2019, they were the best team in college basketball, and the whole season was knocked out because of COVID.
I agree with you.
They were 28-3. And I think McCormick was on that. They've got a few guys that were on that team that are still on that team that have played over 900 games together. I mean, this is an experienced team with a group of guys that know each other extremely well. And I think they're just the better overall team. But Carolina's playing the best overall basketball of anybody. That's why I think this is going to be a great game. Their belief in themselves is just so high. But I think Kansas is just the better team, and they'll win.
Yeah, me too. I agree. I thought I'd just touch on that. I remember the old days and Kansas coming to town, and you and I actually going to a few of those games together, watching a few of those games together. And man, it was just do I hate Kansas? But I've kind of gotten over that a little bit. Okay. I said when we first started this program, I am going to unapologetically, Tom and I, talk about golf on this program. I know at your old gig at the ticket, if you guys spent more than 30 seconds on a golf topic, your listeners would flip out. So if you're not a golf fan, thank you for listening to this week's edition of The Rewind. Please like and subscribe everything you heard, and we'll talk to you next week. We are going to talk a little bit of golf. I'm doing it. You can't stop.
Damn straight.
And the Masters is my Super Bowl pinnacle. It's everything. We already discussed that. Who do you got, Tom? Augusta National 2022. Who do you like to win this golf tournament?
Well, John Rahm, I saw, is the favorite to win it. He hasn't won a tournament since the U.S. Open.
Correct.
At Torrey Pines in 2021. In fact, I was reading none of the top 10 have won this year, which is crazy. It's been with JJ Spawn won yesterday, another first-time winner. It's all like there've been like 10 first-time winners this year, which tells you how tough golf is getting, how tough it is to win in the world of golf.
How deep it is. Yeah.
It's crazy. Obviously, I like Spieth more than you do, probably. I think he plays well at the Masters. If you're looking for an under-the-radar pick, the obvious picks are guys like Scotty Scheffler, who's playing out of his mind, is now the world's number one player.
Is he? Did he get to number one?
He got to number one with that win at the match play.
Wow. I didn't know that.
He's won 3 times this year. He won at Phoenix. He won. He's won 3 times this year. And the thing you worry about with Scotty, he's not a good driver of the golf ball. He's 134th in driving accuracy. Justin Thomas has 5 top 5s or 25s, I should say, at Augusta. That's an obvious pick if you're going to pick him in your pool. Victor Hovland's been playing well, although he's not great around the greens, and you've got to be good around the greens. Colin Morikawa, I really like. He hits green after green after green, and he's putted better over the last couple of years. Cameron Smith has 2 wins this year. Patrick Cantley won the FedEx last year. So those are some. And if you're looking for really under the radar guys, I think Brooks. It's crazy to say this. Brooks Koepka is under the radar.
Yeah, he is.
But he's been so injured.
Blonde hair and all.
That's one. But I would look at Brooks. Xander is a good pick. Will Zalatoris played well last year. But I'm going to go with Morikawa. I'm going to go with Morikawa.
Do you have Scheffler's history at the Masters there in front of you at all?
I do not.
Okay, yeah, that's something I'd like to look into. Horses for courses. Some guys just play this course well, and some guys don't. It's just historically it works out that way. But I'm gonna look that up. I'll be curious to see what Scheffler's past at Augusta has been. You mentioned a lot of the guys there. That I think I'm looking at. Victor Hovland a month ago would have been my pick to win the Masters, but Man, he is not good around the greens this year.
No,
And historically, he's really not good around the greens.
he's
And
not.
that you can't be
No,
that way at Augusta National. And for me to have
no.
any confidence, that's why when Hideki won last year, and Hideki Matsuyama, we're not even talking about him, but
No.
he's withdrawn from 2 tournaments already this year, including
Mhm.
last week's tournament. I don't know how healthy he is. Historically, Hideki has not been a good putter. So for him to win at Augusta was a little bit surprising to me last year. So I think Hovland's a good pick to play well, but I'm not going to go with him. Uh, you mentioned 2 of the guys that my pick is going to end up. I think Cam Smith is going to win the Masters.
Well,
A
the
lot of
guy's got a
people,
ridiculous short game. He hits it a long way. Um, here's the thing. I mentioned I kind of dismissed Scotty Scheffler, but when you're talking about the Masters, and you've got 2 par fives late, 13 and 15.
yeah,
And years ago they tried to tiger proof the Masters. It didn't work. The longest hitters still
got
win
better. Mm-hmm.
the majority of the time. He is playing so well. Another guy, I don't think I mentioned, Sam Burns. I really
Yeah,
like his game.
yeah.
Daniel Berger, 2
There you
guys
go.
that I really like under the
That's the
radar.
guy I was going to get to. It might under the radar if you I understand that a lot of you listening to this program right now may not know who Cam Smith is. He's certainly not a household name, but if someone came to me and said, David, who is your sleeper pick of the tournament? I think Daniel Berger is a guy that I would look at really, really hard if I had to put $10 or $15 down because he has played well this year. I don't know his Augusta history, but his game just overall in the last year and a half has really
Yeah.
rounded into form.
Yep. I mean,
And Colin Morikawa is never a bad pick. He's got
he just hits
everything.
so many greens, and he's
Yep.
been putting better. He's not a great putter still, but he's a much better putter than he has been.
Yep.
John Rahm again is the big pick, and that's not a bad pick because he doesn't have any weaknesses in his game, but he hasn't won for a while. It'll be fun if Tiger makes the cut. I probably won't leave the TV all weekend.
No, even when the show isn't on.
Yeah, if Tiger makes the cut, I'm sorry, I'm out for the spring game. I'm not going.
Yeah, me too. I've got a DVR and a record button, and they both work. So I'm with you. That's exactly right. I'll throw Will Zalatoris into my top 3. Cam Smith, Daniel Berger, Will Zalatoris. I don't like, just for the record, I don't like Bryson DeChambeau. He doesn't seem to hit fairways or greens right now. So
Is it crazy? We've gone through this whole golf talk. We haven't mentioned Rory, and we haven't mentioned Dustin.
That's
Either one of them.
Well, Rory, I'm out on Rory. I've lost complete faith in him. He puked again last weekend, didn't even make the cut. There's something there at Augusta with Rory McIlroy. He's been near the top, had a chance many, many times, and he always wheezed down his leg. And that's why I'm out. I'm out on Rory. I think it'll happen again. I don't think he wins. Dustin Johnson, that's an interesting name, Tom. But frankly, he hasn't been great lately either.
No. And Rory needs the Masters. Of course, you're right. He's had a couple of meltdowns there where he probably should have won. He needs the Masters for that career Grand Slam.
Career Grand. Yep.
He drives it so far that I think we fall in love with Rory. But if he's got a 5-foot putt to win the Masters, I'm not at all confident that he's going to make it.
Nope, either. So we'll see. I'm going to be on Cloud 9 this weekend. Again, we've got a spring game. We've got the Masters. Lots of good stuff going on. Hopefully, it'll turn out a little bit better than my last weekend did.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, it's been fun. Enjoyed it. Good to see you again, my friend. Thank you to everybody out there listening to the Rewind. We will, again, be taking your questions, comments. You can leave them down below here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave them on Spotify, Apple, or just drop us an email, dsradioguy@gmail.com. We have a lot of new content planned that is coming very, very soon. So we hope you'll follow us. We hope you'll subscribe to this because we have some stuff that Well, again, Tom and I are going to be very excited to bring you guys here coming very soon. And we may even have an announcement or two about where you can find the show. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, Tom. Until next week, my friend.
See ya.
Okay. And again, thanks today for listening. Make sure you follow and subscribe. We'll talk to you next week. Can't wait to hear from you. Bye-bye.